Thank you all for joining us tonight. It's nice to see so many of you here. The intent of this meeting is to answer questions and provide information about the proposed landscape assessment district. So the city has been working with CivicMic to educate and engage your community about the landscape assessment district's current shortfall of the previous district and the new proposed district. Our primary goal here is to understand your priorities and take those priorities and put them into action, right? So we have taken your requests and questions over the last 6 months and tried to answer as many of them as possible and accommodate as many people as possible. With that being said, we did offer this presentation in multiple languages, and we didn't have anyone reach out requesting that. So this presentation will only be in English. This meeting will be recorded and shared on civicmic.com /Diamond Bar. If you haven't visited the site before, I'll show you that at the end of the meeting and show you where you can see the recorded meetings, so you can share those with your neighbors or anyone else who happened to miss the meeting tonight. So I'm going to cover some of the same things that we covered at the last meeting. So will the various presenters, just to bring everyone up to speed. And then hopefully we'll cover additional items to not bore those of you who have been at the previous meetings with us. So quickly, I'd like to go over the ground rules with you. We respect everyone's time and personal viewpoints. And we want to make sure that we keep this meeting right around an hour. After that, we start to see people dropping off the call. So at about an hour, we'll start wrapping things up. As I said, we will post the meeting on civicmic.com afterwards, so anyone can watch it. We request that you hold all questions till the end of the presentation. So if you have them, write them down so you don't forget them. And to finish the meeting in a timely manner, we may have to answer some additional questions offline, but any of those questions that we receive through email or phone calls, we'll make sure to post onto our website so others can see the answers to those. To keep down background noise, we will ask that everyone stays on mute. If you remove yourself off mute, you'll notice we'll put you back on. That's just because we want everyone to be able to hear the material that's being presented. CivicMic's process aims to gather information from various demographics with diverse values, and we'd like to hear from all participants. So we'll make every attempt to shield you from personal attacks or slander. If you have a different view from someone else, that's okay. We want to hear from you. But anyone using foul language or making personal attacks will be moved to a private meeting room by the moderator until you can regain your composure. And then if that behavior continues, once you come back, then you'll be removed permanently from the meeting. So I know that I think that your opinion is valuable, and we don't want others to disrespect you for having that. I also know that from our previous meeting, this is a good group of people, good community, and I don't think that we'll have any of those problems. So we'll move on to our first presentation, which is Hal Ghaffari, the Public Works Manager and Assistant City Manager. Hal?
Thank you, Danielle. Good evening, residents and property owners of Landscape Assessment District number 39. I'm Hal Ghaffari. I'm the Public Works Manager and Assistant City Engineer with the City of Diamond Bar. And on behalf of the city team here tonight, I welcome you to our second community meeting of this fiscal year's process for the formation of the proposed District 39-2022. Tonight here from the city team, we have Mr. David Liu, our Public Works Director and City Engineer. And also we have Mr. Anthony Jordan, our Public Works Maintenance Superintendent. Mr. Jordan manages and supervises the works of the contractors that provide maintenance services to the district. We also have team members from other departments, including City Manager's Office and our Public Information team. In my presentation tonight, I will give you a general overview of the district, its past, its current status, and the future status, which will depend on your decision, your vote on the formation of the proposed district. As I said in our previous community meeting, if you attended that, our team's goal is to provide you, the property owners, with accurate and updated information so that you can make an informed decision by March 15, which is the last day to vote on this important matter. Next, please. Next slide. Now, we are going to look into some background information about the district. I need to mention that if you've attended our last community meeting, some of the information in the background part of this presentation may seem repetitive to you, but we noticed that we have community members on this call that haven't attended our past meetings, city council meetings and community meeting, and other calls that we had. So that's why we are providing this quick review of the information that some of them were provided in the past. So stay with us until we take care of that part and we get to new material. District 39, a landscaping assessment district, is located towards the northeast side of the city between Diamond Bar Boulevard and the city limit. Owners of over 1,200 parcels contribute to the maintenance of about 15 acres of slopes, 39 acres of brush, and 5 mini parks. The district is essentially a mechanism to collect assessment fee, and it was formed by the county of LA before the city's incorporation at the request of the land development companies that developed then unincorporated county area. Next, please. Next slide. Thank you. So the areas that are maintained are either owned by individual property owners or were created by the developer of the area for public use. There are public areas that were developed as part of those land development projects, like mini parks, the little blue areas in the map that you can see in the map on the right side of the slide, for instance. Next, please. So here's the type of services that the district has been receiving from the city after the city's incorporation. Annual fire breaks and brushing on the areas, tree trimming on a 5-year cycle, mowing weekly between April to November and bi-weekly December to March, slope maintenance as needed, irrigation system maintenance as needed, park maintenance, the 5 mini parks daily, 7 days a week, and trails maintenance weekly as needed or as needed. Next, please. Now, can we go back to the, now that we know what the district is, let's go back to the history of the issues that it has been facing and what the city has been doing to deal with those issues. Next, please. So the district, when it was formed, was designed to be self-supporting through annual maintenance assessment. That means that the assessment fees that are collected as a line item in your property tax bill must be the funding source that pays for the work. As I said, after incorporation, the city took over administration of the work. But how it works is that still the county collects the assessment as part of the tax, and the city, using that assessment amount, that assessment revenue, procures the maintenance contractor's services and pays their invoices from that fund. But since 30 years ago, the maximum assessment amount of $236 was never increased because there is a legal, some some laws and regulations change that the city cannot increase that assessment on its own and has to go back to the property owners to get their vote to increase it. So the assessment never increased, but naturally the cost went up like anything else. So even with an adjusted maintenance level, the city has been subsidizing the district from its own general fund for over 10 years. General fund is the definition of taxpayers' money that belongs to everyone, and this needs to be used for the services that everyone citywide benefits from. Next, please. So why the city cannot increase the assessment amount? As we said, there is this Prop 218 process. The law would not allow for the increase. That's why in 2019, the city went through that process and asked the property owners to vote and voice their opinion on if they agree to increase the rate, the assessment. The answer to that was no. So the property owners did not agree to increase the vote. So that voting process was unsuccessful. So after exhausting all other options, including reducing the service level to the level that is safe enough for the community, and as it was communicated with the property owners in 2019, the city started the process to dissolve the district in the last fiscal year. The dissolution essentially means that the maintenance of the properties that are being maintained by the district would be sole responsibility of the owners of the parcel. But as we were going through the process, dissolution process, a group of your neighbors got together and contacted the city, sent a petition letter to the city council asking for another chance to vote on an increased assessment. The city council made a decision to extend the existing district for another year with the subsidy that it was providing, and and to give more time for going through another voting process. That's what we are doing right now. Next, please. So what's happening this year? Next, please. On January 18th this year, 2022, the city council dissolved the district by adopting a resolution after going through a public hearing process. That means that after July 1st of this year, this calendar year, the district will not exist, will no longer exist. After that, the city mailed ballots for the formation of the new district named District 39-2022 to the property owners. That was last week. And many of you perhaps have already received your ballot to vote on this new district. This new district is essentially the same as the now dissolved District 39. And the only difference is the new higher annual cost and rate structure in it. The ballots that were mailed to you will need to be returned before or on March 15 this year, on which day our consultant will count them. There will be 3 zones in the new district, 3 assessment zones with 3 slightly different assessment amount, which will be discussed in the next presentation. So when we say this is a weighted vote tabulation, it means that the property owners that pay the highest assessment in zone 1, the weight of their vote is going to be more than the property owners that pay lower amount in their assessment. And for this voting process to be successful, meaning a new district to be formed, more than 50% of the received ballot, the ballots that we received at the City Hall, should say yes to forming the new district. If more than 50% should say, more than 50% of the received ballots say no, the district, or the City Council will not consider forming the new district. Next, please. So what's going to happen depending on the outcome of this voting process? Next, please. If majority of the voters say yes, the new District 39-2022 will take over the maintenance work of District 39, the same work with some enhancement. If the majority of the voters say no, since the district has already been dissolved, District 39, each individual property owner will be responsible for their landscape maintenance beginning July 1, 2022. Next, please. So let's get into different scenarios, yes and no, and see what's the difference between these two situations or these two outcomes. So if the response is yes, the answer is yes, district will be formed, what you will see is that you'll see a new assessment amount next year on your tax bill, about $500 a year versus $236 that you were receiving in previous years, for more than 30 years. The service area, as I said, is going to be the same. Because of the budget table that we put in the engineer's report, the document that based on that we are creating this district, there is a potential to enhance and improve services in the district higher than what we are, the bare minimum that we are providing right now and have been providing the past couple of years. So not many things are changing. Things are getting slightly better, but your assessment is going to be about $500 per year. And if you have any concerns with the services that's provided and everything else related to the district, you can contact the city's Public Works Department to take care of those concerns for you. Next, please. If the answer is no, if most of you say, no, we don't want this new district, what's going to happen? No more District 39 assessment on your tax bill. So next year, your property tax bill is going to be at least $236 less than what it could be if the district was continued the same way that it is right now. Individual property owners, the people that own those parcels that are being maintained by the district now, will be responsible for the maintenance of those districts. They have to take care of it themselves. Irrigation systems and all the improvements that we have on those districts will stay there in place, but they will stop working unless somebody from the district, from property owners or a group of property owners, take over of those facilities or those improvements. Meaning the city will cut the electricity account and water account, you can take over and maintain it. But the city will continue maintaining the 5 mini parks and the trails that are currently part of the street. At that point, if you have any concerns, for instance, you take care of your backyard, your area that was part of the district, but your neighbor doesn't do that. Or somebody a few blocks, a block from you doesn't do it. If you have a concern about that, at that point, because it's not the city's responsibility to maintain those lands anymore, if you have any concern, you have to contact the city's code enforcement, meaning that when you contact them, they gonna get in contact with that property owner and ask them to follow the law, to comply with the law and bring their property into compliance. But the city won't go out there and clean it up or take care of it. So with that, that's my presentation on this part of this meeting. And we will answer the questions you might have after Mr. Brashaw's presentation. That is the next one. Thank you for your time. And let's have a good discussion.
Thank you, Hal, for your presentation. That was great. Now we'll have Jerry Bradshaw from SCI. He is going to present on the proposed assessment and ballot information. Jerry?
Thanks, Danielle, and thanks, Hal, for the background. I'm a consultant hired to develop the engineer's report, which is the document that establishes the whole assessment process. So I just wanted to walk through that and brief everybody on how that assessment district is structured. Next slide, please. First, I want to just talk about assessment districts in general. These are districts in which assessments are paid by owners of properties that benefit from the improvements or services that are provided. These are widely used throughout the state for all kinds of purposes, for property owners to pay for improvements or services within that area. They've been around for over 100 years. They've been used in a lot of different ways. The legal basis can be found in the California Constitution, Proposition 218, which you've probably heard mentioned a few times during this process. And there's many, many legislative acts that embrace the benefit assessment structure for funding improvements and services like this. Assessment districts have been a common way for developers and cities to handle common land as new land is being developed into new neighborhoods. Occasionally, and that's the case here, there's large tracts of land that can't really be developed. You have the hills down below your homes, which are too steep and really aren't suitable for neighborhoods. So those are lands that the developer owned originally. And what often happens is that the city wants the developer to retain ownership of that. The city doesn't necessarily want to take over new land that it doesn't have a specific use for. It's a burden and a liability. So they ask the developers to hang on to those and take care of that over time. But developers usually want to move on. So the next step is to maybe have the developer set up a homeowners association. And that's pretty common around. You have one or two in Diamond Bar. That wasn't the case here. Oftentimes developers think it's harder to sell homes under a homeowners association system. So the third option would be to establish an assessment district so that maintaining these common lands, and in this case, other areas on private property, slopes and so forth, can be paid for and help keep the neighborhood healthy and vibrant going forward. And that worked fine because back in the 70s and 80s, when these were being widely used, city councils, or in this case, the county board of supervisors, had authority to increase the rates and keep up with the cost that might increase over the years. However, in 1996, Prop 218 was voted in by the voters of California, and suddenly those cities could not raise assessments at all without a vote of the people. So most cities in this predicament, and there are many, have had to basically try and live within their means. And some cities like Diamond Bar have gone ahead and contributed public funds to help subsidize where they have a shortfall. Other cities just do less and less work over the years. So that's how assessment districts are used throughout the state, and they're pretty common. Next slide, please. There's three main steps in the process. The first one is the engineer's report. The city hired us to develop this, just as we did in 2019, to take the costs that the city is required to spend to take care of these improvements, and to figure out a legal and fair way to spread those costs around to the property owners within. And that's what we've done in the engineer's report. And we'll hit on that in a little more detail in a moment. Then the process goes to a written notice and noticing everyone that there is a balloting and an upcoming hearing. And that notice includes the ballot. So you can mail in your ballot or drop it off at City Hall or even bring it to the hearing, which is the third step, the actual public hearing, which is scheduled in this case for the middle of March. So that's in a nutshell what the process is and the three main steps. So right now we are in that second step where the ballots have been mailed. Hopefully they've hit your mailboxes by now. And we're counting the days up to the public hearing on March 15th, I believe. Next slide, please. So what is it that you'd be paying for? Well, I think most of you are becoming more and more aware of the work that the city has been doing. And by and large, what the work they would do in the new district is the same as what they have been doing, but with some improvements. The budget for that is around over $600,000 per year. And you can see in the pie chart, most of that is for services for contractors and utilities, like paying for water, electricity. And then there's a chunk for some improvements and handling unexpected expenses. And then there's a little tiny sliver for actual salaries of city employees. You see on the map on the right, a map of all the different improvements that are being done from the brown areas, which are brush clearing, which is mainly fire safe zones behind some properties. There's the yellow areas are the slopes along roadways and other areas where they have to do slope maintenance. The blue zones are the 5 mini parks spread around. And then there's some trails and some other work that gets done in the area. And it's a pretty big area and there's a lot of work to do, and thus the $600,000 cost each year. Next slide, please. So that's the cost side of the equation. The other equation is how do we fairly spread that cost around? In some assessment zones, or assessment districts, there are single family homes, there are condominiums, there are apartments, there's commercial properties, and all those receive benefits in different ways. It's actually fairly simple here because all the properties in this area are single family homes. So they all kind of start on an even basis. However, we did notice, and in the last slide, you may have noticed there's more work being done in a concentrated area in the south end, south of Grand Avenue. And at the north end, there's not as much work being done. So there's not as much benefit going to those properties. And in that big area in the middle, there's sort of in between. So we did divide it into 3 zones. Our task is to try and figure out in a mathematical way how those zones get benefits in a different way. We did come up with some differences, but they're not great. The difference between the highest rate and the lowest rate is just about 7%. There's 2 kinds of benefits. There are special benefits. These are the benefits which we can assess for. These are benefits that are unique to the properties inside the district. But the law requires us to look at benefits that might flow outside the district to neighboring properties or to the general public who might use some of these areas. So we tried to quantify those, separate them out, so you all won't be paying for the benefit that goes to other properties. And in this case, the city's general fund will pay for that amount of benefit. And that works out to about 6 or 7% of all the benefits. So the city will pay for that amount of the costs. In order to quantify these benefits, we broke them into 5 categories that you see there on the right. And from proximity, extension of outdoor areas, views, safety, and the original creation of lots. As I mentioned earlier, the developer was required to set this up in order to keep the burden off the city's back and to have it shared with all the people in the neighborhood. They were required to set this up originally. So those are the types of benefits, and the report goes into some detail about how we quantify those. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 zones. The southern zone we call Zone A, and they have the most amount of work going on to benefit those properties. Zone B is the large area in the middle, which has a fair amount of work and a lot of parks. And then Zone C up at the north end has not as much work, and there are no parks really within good walking distance of those homes. So they pay the least amount. And you see there on the right, the 3 assessment levels. And they don't vary much, but they do vary a little bit. And down at the bottom, we indicate that the existing rate is $236. So it's quite a bit less, but that's been in place since 1985. So it's been 37 years since that initial rate was established. The next slide, please. Hopefully by now most of you have received the ballot packet. It came in that envelope with the big red splash across the front, and it has a notice and information guide inside on two-sided, and then the all-important ballot there. And on the front of the ballot, you'll see a place you can indicate a yes or a no vote on this proposal. You do need to sign and date the ballot. The law requires that. So in order to count the ballot, we need to have a signature on it. On the back, you'll see you'll have your parcel number and the amount being proposed for your assessment. If you happen to own more than one parcel, if you own 2 or 3, and there's a few like that, they'll all show up on the same ballot. So that's the ballot packet. Hopefully you've seen that. If you haven't, one more click, I'll mention that we do issue replacement ballots upon request. So if you've lost this packet, or if you think if it didn't arrive, or you're not sure what happened to it, or the dog chewed it up, you can call into the city, and the number is listed in the notice there, and ask for a replacement ballot. So with that, I'll go to the last slide. That concludes my presentation on the process that we put together to do this assessment and assessment districts in general. So with that, I'll hand it back to Danielle, and maybe we can go to the Q&A part.
I have just a couple updates here, and then we'll get to the questions and answers. I wanted to give a quick update on the working group. Thank you for your presentation, Jerry. That was great, and a lot of really good information. For those of you on the phone, I'm going to explain just what's on the screen here. We are showing civicmic.com/diamond bar. We'll get you to the main page that has all of the information about this process. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be posting this meeting on this site. If you get to the main page here, we've put most of the most important information on this main page. So you can scroll down and you'll see the ballot notice that Jerry was just referencing. You can see you have 2 different options, or 3 different options for languages there if you would like to read the ballot in a different language other than English, which is shown on the screen. As you scroll down, if you need a replacement ballot, the number, we'll put that in the chat here as well. Oh, I'm sorry, it's at the top there. The number is 1-800-676-7516. For some reason, if your ballot got lost, you can call that number, and SCI Jerry's group will get a new ballot out to you. So this is where all the information is for anyone in your community, any of your neighbors that haven't attended any of the meetings, or just this is the first they're hearing of it. They come to you and say, do you know what this is about? This is where you can bring them. So there's the last meeting that we had, the first community meeting there, and then this meeting will be posted within the next couple days. So we did have a working group meeting. We had about 9 residents that were present. There were a number of you that also reached out that wanted to participate in educating others in the community, but didn't necessarily want to participate in the working group, which that's fine. We've, kind of done both, walked through both processes. But with the working group, they have, after their first meeting, they took a map and split up the community into various. They delegated it to various people and took flyers around in multiple languages, and collectively have knocked on over 100 doors in your community to make sure that as many people as possible are aware and educated about what this process is and what their yes or no mark on the ballot means. So with that, they've also released, you may have seen, I believe there was a realtor letter and some yard signs that individuals have put out in their yards showing their either support or I believe all the yard signs are for support of the district. But we do have another community meeting or a working group meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 6 p.m. If you are interested in attending that, you feel like you don't have certain information, or you want some information that you can print out easily that you can't find on the website, or maybe you just want to talk to someone about what's going on, feel free to join us. You can email me or call that 1-800 number. So my email is dwood@civicmic.com, and or call the 1-800-676-7516 and ask for Danielle Wood, and then we'll get you set up to attend that working group meeting tomorrow. So with that being said, we can move into, oh, thank you, Biana, for putting my email there in the chat. We can move into questions and hopefully answer as many questions as possible in our 20 minutes here we have. I do want to go over just a couple behavior and interaction guidelines. As we move into questions, you can either raise your hand, you can say your name, or you can, if you're on the phone, go ahead and unmute yourself and say your name, and then I'll call on you. I'll call on the first name that I hear. I do ask that you speak, that only one person at a time speaks, that you speak for yourself, that you do not make personal attacks, and that you stay on track and try and avoid grandstanding. So only one question per turn. I know some of you have many questions, but we want to hear from as many people as possible. So please just take one question and then allow others to ask questions, and then we'll come back to you. And like I said at the beginning, if we don't get through all of the questions, you can email us, you can call us, and we will get answers to your questions right away. So you have plenty of time to get all the information you need prior to turning in your ballot. So with that being said, I will open this up to questions. If you would like to, okay, I know Francis, you've had your hand up, so go ahead. And then Candy Fisher will go with you next.
Yes, hi, Danielle, thank you. And thanks, Jerry and Hal, for explaining, legitimizing the rate assessment and rate increase. I think pretty much everybody online, I wouldn't speak for everybody, but of course, because each and every time we had this community meeting, the explanation and the statements took like over half an hour. So Q&A takes only 23 minutes or so, and 25 minutes. So, but anyway, I will try to cut into the detail here. Question number one, Hal or Jerry. With slope, I'm talking specifically in the back of Breckenridge Court, which is from on Summit Ridge, from Breckenridge Court all the way to Thunder Trail. I'm just talking strictly this portion here, about half a mile, maybe I mean 1/3 of a mile. Is the city, like Hal's mentioned here, has been losing money as far as affording the assessment for last 10 years? Had the city or anybody in charge of this this area having a year-end reviewing why and how the subsidy, the assessment cannot afford or can make it affordable to the actual cost? Can you answer me very quick, yes or no?
This is Hal Ghaffari. So your question is that have we looked into ways to reduce the cost, or
just to have a review and examine how and why back in, like you said, 30 years ago, enough funding the whole areas, but just ever since 10 years ago, 2009 or 2010, started losing money or can't make it part to the cost of maintaining these slopes and areas. Have you guys done anything like that to examine what's going on?
yes,
On a yearly basis?
yes. The reason is that when they were setting up the rates 30 years ago, they did not know that there is going to be a law that's going to prevent public entities like the city to increase the amount of the assessment. So they were under the impression that whenever it's needed, they can increase the assessment. And as the cost goes up, normally, because contractors that do this kind of work, because most of the work for this maintenance areas is being done by contractors. So every time we go out for a bid or proposal, they come up with a price that works for them. And like everything else, the prices go up. So they were under, when they were creating the district, they were under the impression that they can increase the rate whenever they want. But the law changed, as Jerry explained, Prop 18. And at that point, we could not increase the maximum amount of assessment. But the cost doesn't wait for that. The cost goes up.
Excuse me, that's not my question. I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you. I need to interrupt you. I'm sorry. My question is, I know the contractor, they have, I mean, the privilege to raise or to lower the cost. My question is, has the city, as you, having you guys a team, having a year-end reviewing or examining the how come last 10 years, for last 10 years, can afford the, can make up the actual cost, expenses. Have you guys done that year to year, back-to-back basis?
Every year we go through this budgeting process and we have a public hearing. We prepare an engineer's report every year. And that engineer's report includes assessing what service is being provided, what the cost is going to be for the next year, next fiscal year, and what the revenue is. Our revenue has always been fixed from this because the rate is fixed. But the cost every year is being reviewed. And it's and every time that we go out for a bid, also we do review those areas and see what kind of need the areas have and how the work needs to be done. So it's an annual process.
Okay, thank you very much, Hal. Has it ever occurred to you?
I'm sorry, Francis. I'm sorry. We're going to have to move on to someone else with the question. We can come back to another question.
No, because excuse me. This is it directly connected to what Hal's answer is. Let me finish, please. My question is, okay, you do have end of the year examining. Then please explain to me, have you noticed just on this portion here, Breckenridge Court, in the back of the Breckenridge Court, the water last year, 2 years, from 12 midnight to 12:20, and another time from 5, maybe 5:20. Not every day, 3 or 4 times a week. When you wake up in the morning, you see Summer Ridge all wet. Summer Ridge all wet. Why? Because the contractors failed to do their job diligently. So a lot of water's been wasted, squandered. In other words, city wasted all those waters. Have you guys noticed that or do an examination? What's going on? How come water is so high? How come water bill is so much? Have you noticed that? My question.
Francis, I'm going to let Hal answer that question and then we need to move on to others, please. Go ahead, Hal.
I'm going to be quick to cover everyone else's questions as much as we can. This is not specific to this area. This is a hillside area. This is sloped, if you're talking about this area. And
yes, that's right.
Every drop of the water that you put in this area ends up, it's very hard to control an area like this. And it's not specific to this area or to Diamond Bar. All the cities like us that have this kind of hillside areas, they have that issue. And it's very hard to manage water like that. It's more a technical discussion, and I can have Andrew Jordan, if everybody else has that question, I can have Mr. Jordan answer that question. But if I want to be brief, that's because of the slope. It's really hard to control water on the slope. If it was a flat areas, yeah, we can control water. But if we reduce the level of irrigation, it's not going to be enough for the plants in this area. If we have it at optimum level that we have it right now, and our contractor and our staff every year they do assessment on them. If you have it at optimum level that is enough for the plants, you're gonna, regardless of what you do, you're gonna have some water on the sidewalk. And that's
Not 30%. I can assure you more than 30%. Let me tell you why.
Francis,
I
I'm sorry, we
personally-
have to, Francis, I'm sorry, we have to move on. We've spent almost 10 minutes on this question, which was very specific to the property behind your home. So I'm sorry, we're going to move to the next question, and feel free to have a conversation offline with Hal about this, and we can share all of that on civicmic.com. So I'm going to move on to Candy Fisher. I'm sorry, Francis. Go ahead, Candy.
Hi, it's Chuck, actually, Candice.
Chuck.
My question, I do have a question, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you to all the individuals, really appreciate it. You've done I think you presented it very clearly. I forget who it was, but one of the speakers stated that code management would, or code enforcement rather, would be responsible for dealing with, I don't know how else to phrase it, but complaints, non-compliance issues and things like that. So in the event that is the case, this measure is defeated, my question is, what is the city currently doing in terms of planning for this impact on code enforcement?
Hal, can you answer that question?
Yes, I can take that. Right now, again, that's not a new task. We have the district, but we have areas that are not covered by a district, and our code enforcement are involved in those processes. But they know what the process is, and if there is a need to increase our enforcement efforts, the city is going to be ready to work on that process and increase the enforcement. But it's not new. We have everywhere in the city that we have these kind of areas that people are currently taking care of, and they're not covered by a district. And our code enforcement are ready to, or are trained and have the experience and expertise to deal with that.
Thank you.
I hope
Thank
that
you.
answers. Okay.
Mimi, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So let me share with what the thoughts are. And I see that a lot of people just kind of like looking at the individual sections whatsoever. We has to look at the whole community as a whole, right? To maintain. For those people who just join or just move into this district may not know about what had happened in the past. Let's move on and make the city itself, right? Support the city. Those water, there's a lot of things that the city can do after this where we can remove some of those water, the plant or the trees that requires a lot of water. But right now, the city has no budget. And I'm speaking on behalf because of the city and the resident myself, because I've seen all these things, right? Let's tackle this as the whole community. In general, most of the houses that live on the slope, okay, up on the hill, they are paying much more on the landscaping. You can check it out, okay? They also have the supporting association fee, which means association dues on each property to support this. We don't have one, okay? So what we need to do is just come over the hump. Let's get this one first, and then we can go into the way where we can replace some of those wasted irrigation. And you are right. One of the main things that we have is irrigation go down the drain. So that's why we need all the neighbors to support the vote to say yes, to keep the city beautiful. Number one, the home value. You don't want the brush fire also to destroy the city. And especially us, we are on the hill. And then the most concern is that the brush fire and how to keep the city and the value of the property in our district, okay? District 41 has approved, they have paid association fee and they also approved the increase, okay? We don't want to be a police fighting each other and say, okay, that house doesn't do this and that. $236, whatever the maybe $250 a year extra, we can deal with it to keep the value of our district up and keep upbringing. Okay, this is all I'm going to say for the community. It's not about individual household. It's about the whole District 39. I hope that you understand that, because I was one of the one that's looking to both sides and then come up with an idea. I said, this is not right. We got to work as a team, not just individual spot of a home or pockets of home. Look about the landscaping, look about the brush fire, look about how keep up the bringing and the value of the property. Okay, that's all I'm going to say to everybody who is in this meeting today. Okay, hopefully an understanding. And then if you have any questions, we can tackle more tomorrow.
Thank you, Mimi,
Thanks.
for your comments. Marianne, I saw you raise your hand. Did you have a question or comment?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry, I can't find the hand raised, so I did the
That's okay.
old-fashioned way.
That's okay.
Okay, I was one of the people also with me helping out Mimi getting it. And my question is, well, her statement is, last meeting, we said if there was a realtor, if we could get a letter from them or something like that. So I was going to take this time and read a letter, so maybe it might influence some people of doing the right thing and voting for yes, especially people who are concerned with how much it would cost to individually take care of a piece of property and water it properly and maintain it, cutting it, and getting it all the correct things to go that the city has done, which as a property owner, I've never thought of before until they said that it would become my responsibility. So this was a letter that I got from Gil Rivera in the area. Some of you may know him. He's on many boards and he's lived here a long time. It says you may have seen his ads, and he's lived here over 20 years, his wife and his children, and raised their family here. He doesn't think that we've ever seen an immense change coming as the one that will occur if the landscape assessment district is dissolved as the city is proposing. If you ever take a walk in these areas and see hillsides that are currently maintained in the city, you will be shocked to see their condition in the near future if the city dissolves this area. These areas are currently maintained by an assessment on your property bill with a supplement paid by the city. The city is no longer willing to pay this supplement, so the current plan is to dissolve the LAD, which means we, the homeowners, will live near these areas and will be responsible for watering them, cutting them down, and grooming them. Can you imagine how many homeowners may refuse, or not just refuse, but cannot pay this community assessment? I say voluntary because if it is collected on your property tax bill the way it's currently is, then everybody pays what they will pay. But if it's not put on your tax bill and you have to go out, hire individual contractors and gardeners to help maintain your garden or the hillside, and also to get plumbers to put the water in there to begin with. So it will be most likely die and go unmaintained. In addition to being a real estate broker, he also is an appraiser, and he feels that the property value will surely go down if in these areas currently maintained by a portion of our tax dollars. All the folks who live on streets like this one that we have seen on the Greenbelt areas have been maintained by the city and will no longer have that valuable amenity for their land appraisal. And also, if you're just even walking or driving into the area as a new home buyer, you don't really want to see brown hills or hills that are not properly maintained. The city is currently proposing to increase our property tax assessment by, it is a big increase, but is nothing compared to the thousands of dollars that we will lose if this is dissolved. So he also urges us to vote to keep our landscape assessment districts and approve the proposed increase. I hope you will consider the value of our home, the fire safety, and the beauty of Diamond Bar that we wish to maintain. Okay,
Thank you for that, Marianne.
thank you.
Okay, did we have anyone with a question on the phone before we go back to those who are online? Okay, we'll go ahead then and take your question, Francis. You can go, there you go.
Okay. before well, thank you again. Before I got cut, Hal, I don't mean to, it's nothing personal. I hope you understand this. It's just that from what your explanation earlier, it sounds to me, city, yes, like Danielle said, it's a very specific question because I am personally for the increase of the assessment fee. But I am totally against if and should there be 30% or more of the water being wasted. Again, I cannot speak for other areas because I only pay attention to my backyard. Every time you watered. That's a sin, in my opinion, especially nowadays. California is in a drought for how many years? Let me finish, please. So my question number 2, if the city has never done, like you said, personal patrolling the areas, those areas that need to be maintained, year-end examination of what could be done better and so, I'm sorry, Hal, you guys should be doing a better job. Why? Because taxpayers' money going to had paid your payroll and will be paying your payroll. It's a shame that you guys did not go out for last 10 years, end of the year, assessing how much water being wasted. And number 2.
Can I
Number
answer
3.
that before we go to number 2, Francis, because the time is really limited.
I know, exactly. That's why I asked Danielle, can we cut the introduction shorter? But she said no. So anyway, my number 2. Now I know that the slope belongs to my property. Before, I was aware of that before last year. How dare the contractors could cut the trees that I planted it personally myself, just to avoid and to avoid the mudslide. How can they? How could they? If they don't know, I don't blame them. But city knows that if and should the city, the resident owners plant the tree, leave them there. Why take it out? Now that I want to fight for those trees, those contractors took out from my backyard, from the slope. Okay, number 3.
Francis, I'm sorry, we have to move
I'm
on to
sorry.
someone else. We can come back to you for your third question after we ask if there's others. AJ and Hal, can you definitely will
yeah.
make a note to follow up and see what efforts can be done to manage the runoff there. Francis, I think that the city appreciates your concern and your comments, and for everyone in the community, if this is passed or isn't, using your observations to contact the city and let them know what's going on is very beneficial. So
Yeah, that's exactly what I.
okay. Hi, is this Lot?
This is Jose.
Okay, go ahead, Jose.
A couple of questions. Thanks for the meeting. Personally, I do believe that we should maintain that the maintenance should be maintained. I'm not really enthusiastic about how it's being divvied up. I think it should be shared by the whole city. But my questions are, how can I get information on the weighted weights? And also where can I get the information, how the calculations were done? To look at this and say that the city is only responsible for 6 or 8%, I really question that. And also I'd like to have the invite to go to the next meeting for Thursday.
Okay, perfect. Jose, if you could write down this phone number to call me so we have a way to get in touch with you. If you're already signed up on our mailing list at civicmic.com, then we can look it up that way. But if you could call 1-800-676-7516 in the morning, We'll make sure to get you all of the information you've requested. Jerry Bradshaw from SCI shared that the engineer's report has all of that information, and it is available on the website as well, so we can direct you to that. Is there anything that you wanted to add to his to answer his question, Hal or Jerry, or you think that's sufficient?
I think Jerry can just say that, again, as you said, all the information is available on that engineer's report in details. It explains exactly how the weighting works and how the benefits have been calculated.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I would agree with that. Thanks.
Jerry, can you maybe comment on why this isn't something that can be covered by the entire city? This assessment.
Well, the improvements are local to this neighborhood. Possibly with the trails down below the neighborhood, those are shared by other people in the city, and that's been taken into account. The bulk of the work is up around the backs of the properties that are in the neighborhood. So that's why most of it's in there. As I mentioned before, this was structured as a condition of approval for building this neighborhood. That if this hadn't been set up for this large area of land, as well as the slopes up there, to be handled through an assessment district, the neighborhood wouldn't have been built. It would have been have to be developed in some way that would accommodate that. So that's why it's attached to this neighborhood in its origins. And it still makes sense to go through. Most of the work is right around the homes in the neighborhood.
Thank you for that, Jerry. And thank you for your question, Jose. Lot or Kathy's iPad, did one of you have a question?
Well, actually, it's David on Kathy's iPad.
Hi, David.
Hi, ladies and Hal. I wish AJ were here. I just want to say thanks for the meeting. I've spoken to a couple of you over the last couple of weeks. It's been a tough go getting people to even sit down and talk. I'm hoping that we'll get some ideas tomorrow. Mimi, you had your idea. Somehow we need to figure out a way to make the whole community understand that it's to the benefit of all of us. I appreciate very much Mary Ann's letter from Gil. Other people, a few people I've spoken to have made similar comments that yes, our property values are in fact going to go down. And somehow we just need to make this thing work. I've probably handed out 40 to 50 copies of the letter that was sent out to us over the weekend. And in most cases, I've had to just leave it at the front door. Either nobody would answer, or the few who did answer, they didn't have time to talk. Somehow we just need to make this work, guys. It's basically that simple. That's it for now. I'll be adding a few more comments possibly tomorrow night at our community. So thanks again to all of you.
Thank you so much, David. Is there, I see Candy, you have your hand up again. Is there someone else that hasn't asked a question that has a question? Otherwise, I will move on to the Fisher household.
Yes, you were talking about the signs. Where do you obtain the signs, and is there a cost per sign?
So individuals from the working group can help you with that. If you want to call our 1-800 number, that's the 1-800-676-7516. Ask for Danielle or Michelle. We can get you in touch with the individuals who are doing those. So those signs have been created by individuals in your community.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Yes. La, I noticed that you have your mute off. Did you have a question? Or I saw Jonathan, looks like you're back on mute. Jonathan, raised your hand. Yes, Jonathan, go ahead. You are currently still on mute.
Danielle Davenport here. My concern is with the format of the information guide in the ballot. In Diamondville, we have a 58% Chinese population or Asian population, and this ballot is completely in English other than.
Hello.
I went to my neighbors asking if they'd received it. Several said yes, they had no idea because they couldn't understand English.
We can't, I don't know if others can hear you completely. I hear that you have some concerns about the ballot not being presented in other languages, but I think you're moving away from the microphone or the phone. We can't hear you completely.
The only reference to receiving this in any other language is a small footer on the back of the information sheet. So when I went to several of my neighbors, I'm an advocate. I will pay the.
Can you
No,
hear
we
her?
can't hear, but I think that first part, you got that first part right, I think. You want to explain it or you want me to explain it?
Go ahead, Hal.
Yeah, so the ballot itself, obviously it's a legal document, we can't really translate it, but notice that went with it has the language, has a line in there that you can, in Chinese and Korean, that you can, how you can get more information about this process in your language of preference. And if you go on the website, I'm gonna unshare my screen, and if you can.
Sure. Yeah, Biana can pull up
Diana, you
CivicMic.
can pull up CivicMic, then you can see that. So in there, on the web page of the process, there are links to those notices translated into Mandarin and Korean. You can use it for that purpose.
Yes. So thank you for that question, Lot, and please direct your neighbors to this website so they can get that information. We also put the link in the chat as well. Jonathan, you have your hand up, and I think you came off mute, but we were listening to Lot at that point. So go ahead, you can ask your question. The mute button's typically on your left bottom corner.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I got a quick question. You know, in the past, do we have a check and balance with management as far as watching what our vendors or contractors are doing? Because when I've seen contractors doing trimming or cleaning, I shouldn't say this, but maybe half the time they're just laying down, either taking their breaks or thoroughly doing their jobs. And can we have a schedule when slopes are being maintained so we won't have to be calling Mr. Jordan and finding out, hey, I've got brushes back here, it's fire season, it's overgrown, or your pepper trees are so tall, I bought this home for a view, now I'm looking at a big pepper tree in my backyard. Are we doing any of these things to do a check and balance with our contractors? And I don't think I've had sprinklers going in my backyard for the past 10 years because they've been broken. So who's watching and overseeing that?
Al or AJ, can you answer that question?
Yes. So in regards to some of the areas, I believe we're talking about an area off of Longview and Hedgewood there.
That's correct.
There are areas that over the years have seen a decline as costs have gone up and the assessment has stayed the same. We were tasked with trying to do the same amount of work with less resources, and it's just unsustainable. Some of the areas that were considered landscape maintained slopes, we had to partially and slowly transition them into more of a fire break area where annually, definitely we would go through and make sure that things get cleaned up and cleared out. Other areas we try to get through quarterly. These aren't the optimum times to do it, but or the optimum intervals, but it's what our budget will sustain. And unfortunately, that is going to create areas where we're going to find deferred maintenance. So it's really unrealistic to expect that we'd be able to maintain them at a very high level when we don't have the funding to do so. So
But why
I'm sorry,
is it
go
coming
ahead.
to, why is it coming to this time in 2021 that we're dealing with it now when we should have been dealing with it years back if we saw the decline?
Well, there was a decision that was made to subsidize the districts and try to sustain them. That change, with the economic climate of things, a decision was made that we could no longer do it. That was a decision that was made at a much higher level. And that brought us to where we're at right now with the dissolution of the district and the potential of the formation of the District 39 2022.
Okay, this was an unincorporated area in 1987, correct? And they had a budget from 1987 till whenever. But why is it brought to our attention in 2020 when now everyone is trying to scramble and take care of the issue?
If I may, this is Halkafari. I'm going to take that question. When the city saw the gap, started seeing the gap between the revenue and the cost, for several years, the city council made a policy decision to subsidize this area because the subsidy wasn't that big. And just to be concerned about health and safety of the residents and people in that area and the properties that are in that area, the city council decided and came to conclusion to subsidize them. Several years passed by, the city got in contact with the residents and trying to find a way to fill the gap, to remove that, eliminate that. That process that we are talking about started before 2019, get in contact with the residents. And well, in 2019, the resident, over 75% said that they don't want that increase. That's when the city started cutting back on services. Because when there was a point, that policy decision and subsidizing has always had a limit on it. And that limit was reached at that point. That's why, looking for the best solution for the community, the city continued to keep the district, even after the city, the residents or the property owners said a big no to an increase. And last year, this city went through the process to dissolve the district. Again, your neighbors came and said that, give us another chance. So it's not something that happened all of a sudden in 2020 or 2021 or 2022. It's been an ongoing issue, and the city exhausted every option to take care of this matter, this issue, without having to reduce the service level. But at this point, we are at the limit, and that's why the city council approved dissolution of the district on January 18th. So it's not all of a sudden, it's been going on. This dialogue with the community has been going on for several years, and that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Hal, for that. We have lost a good portion of our attendees so far since we've gone over here in time. So we're going to go ahead and answer 2 more questions, and then we'll close the meeting for the evening. If there's other questions that come up, please feel free to call us at the 1-800 number or email me. Go to civicmic.com. There's also a place there you can enter your question, and we'll get your questions answered. So we'll answer Harry, Lee, and Aaron, and then we'll go ahead and close the meeting after that. So Harry, Lee.
Thank you. Well, I just want to, mention that I know I heard about the landscaping hasn't increased since 1985 or something, right? Is that correct? 85 to until now?
Since it was created, correct?
You know,
Correct.
anyhow, it's the $236. I'm just looking at the bill, and it went out to over double, for almost $500 now that you're suggesting to accept it. And I always trying to find out that, school district bond, I know this is it's not related to this issue, but the school district, it's almost $1,000. And college, community college is $320. So it's $1,300 per year in addition to, and all of this thing added up and almost to $10,000. I mean, there's $9,200. And I'm retired, and we're living in a fixed income, and government don't concern about the continue increasing because it's going to continue to increase, and you don't concern about the people, the raising this from almost double. I mean, the more than double for the fee, and it's continue in every other things in the increase. So you have to concern about the people who are living on a fixed income and continue increasing. The tax bill is getting bigger and bigger. And I'm not really, I don't know whether the city is doing a good management on this, just like Francis mentioned, the cost involving and maintaining in the proper way. So it can be, the expense can't be reduced. And I'm not really happy about how they're doing. And all of a sudden, just the landscaping over double the fee. And I'm not really happy about what's going on with the city. That's all I have to say. I understand I like to have service, and I like to have good surroundings and maintain the landscaping and parks and things. I don't even have children that going to school. I've been paying all the school district fees, and every year it's $1,300 in addition to all of these things. And I'm not really happy about how they're assessing the taxes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and, very valid comments. So go ahead and move on to Aaron.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, I've never seen this map that's posted until recently, and I was just studying it right now. I noticed that the brush areas, is that going to be covered by the landscape district?
How would you like to answer that?
AJ, you're most familiar with the map. Do you want to cover that?
Yes, so the areas that are indicated on the map in brown are the current areas that where fire brush takes place. If the district is not reformed as District 39 2022, any of those areas that are on private parcels will become the responsibility of the individual parcel owners to maintain. There are some large parcels in there that are city-owned, and any city-owned parcels will continue to be maintained for fire brushing by the city of Diamond Bar. But any of the parcels that are private, again, will be the responsibility of the parcel owner.
Oh, okay. I was kind of curious though, how far back of the property, well, the fence line does the city maintain, I guess?
Are you specifically talking about fire brushing?
Yeah, fire break.
Yeah, so generally what we do is 100 feet, but it's not 100 feet from the property line. It's 100 feet from the closest structure.
Oh, okay. Because we've always done our slope. We were under impression that we had to maintain ourselves, but I've never seen a crew working on that area. I'm just kind of wondering now.
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what street you live on.
Oh, it's Winwood.
Okay, there are some areas that are indicated on the map as fire brushing areas, but they're not done on an annual basis. You know, LA County Department of Agriculture, they'll go out and inspect areas and they prescribe the work that needs to take place. So there are some of the areas that are indicated in brown that aren't necessarily done on an annual basis. Some of them are treated as needed, but generally speaking, those areas that are done as needed are based on recommendations from LA County Department of Agriculture.
Okay, it's kind of so that the brown stuff is kind of a gray area there. Oh, and what was the number to get a yard sign?
In order to talk to individuals from the working group, you can call our 1-800 number. That's 1-800-676-7516, and we can get you in touch with those other community members.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you for your questions. And AJ, thank you for the response. Okay, this is going to be the very last one because we've lost about a quarter of our attendees. So Rashmi, you will be the last question that we'll ask. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi. So thank you very much, you guys. Definitely appreciate you guys taking time out. I know this question has been asked and this comment has been made. What I don't understand is this issue or this commitment was started in 1985, you said. Why did city not increase by $10 every year to kind of catch up to this? Why all of a sudden 2019? And now it's like, okay, now we have to increase it by $300 or whatever that is, or $500. That is kind of like mismanagement. I don't understand, what happened there. Why was not, kind of thought about it beforehand? Like, yeah, maybe every year it needed to be increased $5.
Jerry, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. It goes back to what I said in a little bit of my presentation. Back in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, when these districts were formed, cities didn't think they needed to put in an escalation formula into the formation of these districts because they had authority to increase the rates each year as needed to keep up with costs. It wasn't until the law changed in 1996 that suddenly that power was stripped away from the cities, and most cities around the state were left holding the bag on not being able to increase these assessments. Now, what happened between 1985 and 1986 was the original assessments were probably a little bit higher than they needed to be. So they're actually able to maintain this young district before it got totally grown up. And within those lower assessments, and then they did start raising them up. When they were locked down in 1996, there were some surplus funds in the district, so the city lived off of those for another 5-10 years. They also trimmed back, I think, some of the work they were doing in order to live within their now restricted budgets. And it wasn't until about 12 years ago that the general fund finally came into play to try and keep these things afloat. But it wasn't mismanagement. It was the change in the law that suddenly changed how everybody had to do these things. And most cities in the state were left holding the bag. So I appreciate your comment, and it's a valid concern, but the city was sort of a victim of the law change in 1996.
No, it's not pointed towards anybody in particular. I want to clear that. It's not like I'm pointing fingers at anybody who's on the call or anything. But I understand what you're saying, cities' laws change it. But here we are, we're passing the ballot. This ballot could have passed 15 years ago with a lot less amount of, people would have been, more than happy to kind of say, okay, go ahead, increase it. But, that also didn't happen, right? I understand they didn't have that power, but they still don't have the power. They're putting the ballot out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's right.
But for the balloting process, there is cost and effort involved. So probably back then, it wasn't really worth it from the cost benefit analysis standpoint to go through the process. But when it got to that point in 2019, the city saw that the cost, it is worth it from economically spending taxpayers' money on this process. And there are other reasons, as I said, there was a policy decision that city wanted to protect health and safety of the residents without going back to the residents asking for higher assessment. But that at some point, the policymakers decided that this is enough. We have to change the course and go back to the property owners.
Thank you so much for that, Hal. And I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. As we said, if you have other questions that weren't answered, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to get your questions answered so you can make an informed decision when you are submitting your ballot. Once again, thank you. And I will hear from some of you with the working group, and have a good evening.